Me. Okay.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Entrepreneurs with No Limits. Always live and never scripted. That's the best part about it. I'm Richard Rosner. I'm here with my sidekick and co-host, John Ruffini.
How are you doing, everybody?
Hey, pretty good, John. And our guest today, I'm just going to deep dive into it because we are short on time. Leslie Vickery. How you doing, Leslie?
I'm fantastic. Thank you.
Clear Edge Marketing. But before we even start with our deep dive, there's a special day yesterday. Leslie, you want to tell us what your special day was yesterday?
I guess maybe my birthday? Is that
yes.
We have a little surprise for you.
Oh, no. That is absolutely
happy belated birthday, dear.
Thank you so much. Yeah, Rob and me gave up yesterday that it was
she
my
totally
birthday.
Sold you out. Absolutely.
I know, she really did. Thank you. That was so nice. Thank you so much. I feel very special.
We're all about showing love to everybody. We're just going to deep dive into it. So tell us a little bit about what's going on with you right now and everything that you're working with.
Sure. Well, first of all, thank you both so much for hosting such an important discussion for our industry. And just really appreciate you all taking the time to bring on such wonderful guests and actually including me. So thank you, thank you, thank you. With that, things are great right now. I know a big piece of what we're going to be talking about is Staffing World next week and Thrive Live and different things of that nature. So we're kind of knee deep in getting clients ready for, the rest of the year and getting ready for conference season and really getting comfortable with going back into public spaces and seeing people and socializing and all of those good things. Us as an agency and the people we're working with, there's a lot of planning, a lot of strategy happening and people just getting ready. It's been such an insanely busy 2021 preparing for 2022 and beyond.
That's a good thing.
It's a great thing. Celebrating it every time I hear, and someone actually on our team mentioned this yesterday on LinkedIn, like being grateful and having gratitude. And, when we say it's so crazy busy and how am I going to do all of these things, we're in a very blessed and fortunate position. Several of us, especially our industry. Yes, it's hard to find talent and, sometimes meet client demands, but it certainly beats the opposite, which is not being employed and not having those opportunities or not having our health. So
couldn't agree more. I tell folks all the time, if you're a recruiter, this is the kind of market you want. And while it doesn't make the job any easier, to your point, you'd rather have it this way than having nobody wanting your business. So
exactly.
It's a good thing. So let's kick off. I want to dive into Thrive because that is a movement that started not long ago, but quickly picked up steam. Tell us a little bit about what it is and what people can expect next week in Denver.
Sure. So I have to confess something. I've been in our industry for over 20 years, so in the staffing industry, and I really never got involved with ASA until Thrive, which is really a women in leadership group. So I would ancillary be involved. I literally hadn't been to a Staffing World conference until the first Thrive, which was a few years ago before the pandemic. And leaving, I had shared with Diana Mertz, I'm so disappointed that I hadn't got involved earlier because it's such a wonderful association and group. And with Thrive, what I would say is it feels like it's a pre-conference program, but it's really an all year long initiative. So there's various events that are happening, especially in the virtual standpoint now that we can have more webinars on different topics and discussion groups and bring speakers in and so forth. But I'll tell you mostly about the conference. It really started as a pre-conference where a couple of days now this year going in, we'll do a half day session Monday afternoon and then a half day session Tuesday morning, leading into the full staffing world session and so forth. But it's effectively an opportunity to bring women in our industry together to really learn from each other and grow and hear from outside speakers as well as leaders from within the staffing industry. And one of the things I love about it is it truly is a wonderful mix of up and comers as well as the C-suite in the space. So it gives everyone a real opportunity to learn and grow from each other.
I can remember the very first pre-con event they had because I was doing a pre-con in the room next door. And I saw Rob and Me, who I think Me Derby had sponsored that first pre-con or was one of the sponsors. And I walked into that room and it was buzzing like nobody's business. And I thought to myself, holy cow, I'm hosting a pre-con, but I should be in here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, you could tell from the get-go that it was something that I think a lot of people wanted to get involved with, but nobody really had the courage to just go ahead and start it. So once it started, it had legs and it took off like crazy. And I know that over the pandemic, you guys had several virtual sessions that I know people on my staff attended, and they just said it was wonderful. I mean, you had hundreds and hundreds of people on virtual sessions, which was awesome.
It was truly incredible. And John, I remember that was the first event I was referencing. And I was fortunate to be very involved in planning that event and moderating a panel. And I have to tell you, they ended up selling out the event. So people caught wind of it when they were showing up for conference the night before. We had a little and as people were walking by the reception, the women would stop and say, well, what is this? I want to be part of it. And then they just showed up the next day. And since then, they keep showing up in droves. We have, I know just as an example, Belflex, GDH Consulting, several companies, Kforce, they send a lot of people because you can virtually send so many people. So to your point, you could get hundreds of people in attendance, which is truly incredible. Diana Mertz and the team have done a phenomenal job this year. Erica Heisen with Workin was the chair, and Carrie Circa with AMN, Kelly Boykin with Aquint. And then we have a group of, I want to say at least 20 to 30 women on the council who are driving it.
That's awesome.
That's amazing. Leslie, I got to ask you, so people out there, the audience, if they want to join, how can they join this great revolution?
Yeah, if you go to the Staffing World website, you can see that they have the pre-conference piece on there and you can register for there. Also, if you go into ASA Central, you can also volunteer. So when you go into volunteer and you pick which groups you want to be a part of, you can be part of the Women in Leadership group and request to be part of the council as well. And John, you mentioned Me Derby as a sponsor. Since the beginning, now companies are trying to join so much. And one of the reasons is we actually have scholarships that we give as well, where people can nominate women within their own company to actually, or women you may know at different companies, to actually get paid full admission into the Women in Leadership part of Thrive, and then also the entire conference. So Anthem and Assurance and Bullhorn, ESC, Sense, Workin, Me Derby, our company, the sponsorship group keeps growing, and it's to the result of hundreds of people being able to attend and have great speakers. It's really exciting.
You guys
That's
are
outstanding.
This is amazing. I mean, they're going to have your own conference one day. You just thrive.
Well, if you think about it, yeah, TechServe, they have, we've actually sponsored a women's luncheon with them for about 15 years, which has become a staple of the conference. And then, SIA has the Global Women 150 list that they do. So everyone's trying to do something. And then recently this year, and I know we'll touch a little bit on DE&I, the Women's Business Collaborative came together actually last year and this year, which was the first time all three associations, including others, have come together, and executives in the industry to really focus in on DE&I. But ASA has taken it a step further as far as this conference and all of the content that's pulled together. It's truly impressive and something I'm so proud to be a part of.
Now, the conference itself, it's going to be live and in person, but they're also streaming it for those that don't feel comfortable or can't get to it. Are they going to be streaming the pre-con events also?
They are, yes.
Outstanding.
I know Women in Leadership. I don't know about the others, but yes, for sure.
Very
I believe
good.
so. I think everything's being live streamed, and again, it just presents an opportunity. Maybe that's something that will be a wave of the future. And what I love about it is it's expensive as a business owner. I know this too. So we send around 10 people or so to the Women in Leadership Pre-Con, imagine sending them in person. You've got flights, hotels, conference costs, and so forth. By having it virtual and giving them, it's, not exactly the same as being in person, but we'll do everything we can to give them a good experience. And at the end of the day, they're getting exposure to really strong content.
Absolutely. And great networking for these women. I mean, especially those that are, trying to come up in the business and have leadership aspirations. What a great network to seek out mentorship and advice from those that have, succeeded to that level.
Absolutely. You mentioned mentor. I was pleasantly surprised. You both know I co-founded a women in tech group called ARA. It's Attract, Retain, and Advance Women in Tech. The premise of it was mentorship. ASA has a mentor match program. I'm not sure if you're both part of it, but it is a phenomenal program. And when people ask me coming out of Thrive, what can I do to get more engaged? How can I, have access to continue to learn? I always suggest the mentor match program. It's so strong. And again, I think it might be the only one in our industry. So ASA is doing some great things in that regard.
It is awesome. I got to ask you real quick, how many people do you have in Thrive? Do you guys even know the count number?
Oh gosh, I should have checked on it. It's gotta be, I know for sure it's in the hundreds. We had at least 400 in the last event that we did. And then the Women in Leadership Council, I bet it's over 1,000. I don't know. Diana, if you're listening, let us know. But it keeps growing and growing. So it's really incredible. In person this year, we're hoping for about 100 people.
Outstanding. It'll be a good time. I know we'll see you there. We won't be in the pre-con session, but we'll definitely see you there for sure. Yeah. So let's shift gears a bit because it parallels the Thrive movement. You've done a lot of work with DE&I, and this is something that our industry has struggled with, admittedly. There's, plenty of firms that are finally coming of age. But that's been a big concern, not so much at the grassroots entry level, but as you go up, I forget what the statistics are, but as you go up into management and especially executive management, the disparity is mind-boggling. What are some of the things that you've done to create awareness to that and promote more DE&I within staffing?
Sure. Well, one, it's really important from a statistics standpoint. You mentioned, John, there are two groups actually three. SIA does it too, all of the associations, but really I look at the Women's Business Collaborative that I mentioned that has come together, and we've created survey data as well as Clearly Rated. So Clearly Rated in the past year or so have put together an entire program where they can get the foundation level of a company and then compare that to the industry. So if you look at both of those sets of data, it's around 50-50 in the entry level roles are men and women. It could be, 48%, 52%, but it's right around 50-50. Then it drops to around 21, 22% in the C-suite. And even worse, it drops to around 4% for women of color in the C-suite. And when you think of our entire industry, when it comes to people of color, it's the numbers are staggeringly low. And again, you can get data from the Women's Business Collaborative. I know SIA, ASA, and Clearly Rated all have the data. So what we've done in the last year and a half really is come together as a group to look at having a bias for action and where we can start to make a difference. So driving awareness through webinars. I know I've recently been on some with Robin Mee, who's been on your show, and Deliber Wesley and Eric Gregg and others, but really looking at how can we drive awareness to the issue. And the first thing this is the first time we've done it as an industry. We knew that it was an issue, but we really needed the data to back that up. Now we have the data. And what I see in the data is certainly opportunity on a couple of fronts. One, there's a succession issue somewhere where people are either leaving the industry or they are not getting promoted within their companies. Perhaps it's women are having families. Maybe that's what's happening. But understanding why is there such a big gap between entry level and that executive leadership position? And what can we do to make a difference with that? I'm leading a work stream through the WBC on that exact topic with a few executives in our industry to really dig under the covers as to what's happening within there. And the first thing you need to do is really look inside your own house, right? Your own company. We also talk about that, though. It starts in the home, meaning within your own home and your family. What are you doing around diversity and so forth? But how can you bring that into your company and really take a hard look at what your foundation is as it relates to DE&I, and what are your succession plans? Do you have the talent? are they leaving and what reasons are they leaving for? In a lot of cases, it could have been flexibility. It could have been opportunities that arose while people were out. There's a lot of hypothesis that you could look at, but it's really understanding first within your own house, your own company, what's happening. So if you look at how you're recruiting, how you're retaining, and then how you're advancing, you can really start within your own company to do that. And there's a lot of experts now in our space who are helping with that. Asfa Malik, Jeanette Harvey. Jeanette may be a name you know well through the industry. She was with S3 for some time and started her own company, but really looking at opportunities to dig under the covers within your own company. And if more people did that and took ownership and accountability of that, certainly we'd start to see the needle move. And then at the bigger picture, we're looking at resources and content and opportunities again within the industry as a whole, so we can give people access to the tools and resources that they need to make a difference. But my advice is always look inside. Don't just check things off because you're thinking, you're checking the box like, oh, I got training, or, oh, we're changing the way we hire. Get a baseline to make sure your company is ready. Get yourself ready for change, and then look at recruiting, retention, and advancement to really see how you can make a difference within those numbers. But to me, there's a big gap. What happens? What's happening within your company to make that gap? So
it's really got to be a proactive effort. It can't be something, to your point, where you're just checking off boxes to satisfy a statistic. You've really got to be proactively seeking to create a diversified workforce with multicultural. I'm blessed that I'm with a company now that, geez, whenever I go into the office, it's like the United Nations. I love it because we've got a little bit of everything. So from the top down, there's a conscious effort to have an environment of inclusion, not exclusion, which I think, the more of that is very much mainstream now. And companies that aren't doing that are really kind of not looked down upon, but they're missing out on talent because they're not as an attractive an employer because of the way that they're grooming their workforces. So it's something that companies need to do. And we're still a long way from where we need to be, but I'd like to think we're on our way to, we're on a good path anyway. The awareness, to your point, is definitely there.
It's a staggering number. It's 100, according to the World Economic Forum. And I don't always love quoting these stats, but it's alarming when you hear it. The World Economic Forum says equality, and the pandemic set us back, but equality won't be reached for another 130 years. Do you know how many generations that is? I have a son who's 5. He wouldn't ever see it. His kids would never see it. Their kids would never see it. It's frightening to think. But if you think realistically back to just like even your own grandparents and then their parents, it's not that long ago that we were having significant, issues and challenges with equality and racial inequity and so forth. So, but I do think as an industry, think about it. We are within talent and technology. The two things that every company needs, talent and technology. We have incredibly talented technology companies and we focus on talent. We are in a spot, the perfect position to not only make a difference within our own industry, but to make a difference for our clients and the candidates. It's like this trifecta that you used the word passion yesterday when promoting this. I'm so passionate about it because I just see so much potential. I want to mention one other thing about Staffing World. I am so excited about this panel. It's on male allies. So a lot of times too, when you think about it, men aren't really sure how they can help, or they'll see different ERGs that they feel like employee resource groups that don't impact them or affect them, or how can they get involved or what they can do. Or worse, they think I'm going to be out of a job. What's going to happen to my career, instead of thinking, how can I help and how can we all do this together? So I have the distinct pleasure of moderating a panel. Listen to this lineup. It's incredible. Jeff Bowling and Delibra Wesley. What I love about it is it's like pairs of people who the male ally have really helped rise up the women. So
that's awesome.
Nice.
Jeff Harris and Erica Heisen and Todd Bavall and Jamie Donnelly. So we're going to talk about how each of their stories uniquely and how they were able to help rise women up to the C-suite. It's awesome. And what men can do to make a difference.
When is that taking place? Is that part of Thrive, or is that a separate session?
Separate. It's Wednesday. So
excellent.
Wednesday, I want to say it's at 11:30.
Okay, good. Don't be at 2:30 because then you'd be conflicting with my session.
Oh, no, I will not conflict on that one. Although I think the other one I'm doing, winning the hearts and minds of clients. Nope, it's after that. I think it's the session right after that. So
Okay,
yeah,
very good.
We're good.
Well, we will have to be in attendance for that. I look forward to that.
Exactly.
Part of this, it makes me think, and we've talked about this offline, Leslie, is, part of attracting not just a diverse candidate base for the staffing industry. Part of it is also just attracting people to the staffing industry. Most of us, myself included, kind of fell into it. I didn't think I'd be a recruiter, but I had a meeting with a recruiter when I was at a crossroads in my career. And the next thing I knew, I was on a desk and I was loving it. What are some things, because I know you're passionate about this too, and ASA is a big movement in this and promoting staffing as a career, not just we'll try this out and see how it goes. What are some things that you've seen that are helping to educate the community about what's available to them in our industry?
Yeah, it's such an interesting thing because we've all been part of this industry, what feels like our entire lives, but most of our careers. And I host the Edge podcast. It's an executive women in recruitment podcast, and almost, I believe, every single person probably fell into staffing. Now, I also am a judge for the ASA Women in Leadership Scholarship Program. And the very last question is, what would you change about the industry? And every single applicant that I read at least said the perception of the industry. Mm-hmm. So we're falling in and there's just a negative perception. But once you're in, it's like, you don't want to leave. You love the people, you love helping people. It's so fantastic. So the question I always have is, how can we be an industry people seek out versus fall into? And what can we do to better the reputation of staffing? And that, that's tough. You've got a lot of negative feelings from different areas. So we always talk about the candidate experience. If you just take the word candidate off for a second and think experience, which covers your own company and your team. If you think about of course, the candidate, but also your client experience. If your clients have a bad experience working with you as a staffing professional, if you're in sales or recruiting, whatever that role or function may be, and candidates are complaining about the staffing industry, we're kind of up against, it's a very uphill, battle to overcome, unfortunately. So there's a little bit of reputation management that we need to do. And I remember back in the day, TechServe used to have something, and this was back when I was in the staffing industry, not necessarily servicing the staffing industry during my Spherion days. You had to be a member, you had to abide by certain things, right? So it kind of withheld this, we're going to put you up here because you're, leading by example, growing your company with, pride and wanting people to join it and so forth. But you had these code of ethics, so to speak, that you had to hold your company to and the employees to. But really there's a reputation management piece. And then also, as we're working on from the recruiting standpoint, colleges, universities, I would argue even when you're looking at content and professors and what people are being taught, if there's a way that we can get involved in any curriculum building or career pathing and things of that nature, that could help us, as well. But the relationship, I would say that it's the reputation that pains me the most because I'm really proud of it. But when I mention it to people, it's like, oh, if they had a bad experience, then that's all they know. They don't know the greatness that comes of it.
You're still right with that, Leslie, because I'm on the streets every day. I hate the word, you probably both agree, temp. They're a contractor with me. They are contracted with me to do a good job, and I'm their coach. That word temp, we got to eliminate that totally together because everybody thinks they're worthless. And I talk to these job seekers like, I'm just a temp. These key words, I think, Leslie, we have to start changing.
And look at your passion for it too. You want to help them. Like you legitimately want to help them. Unfortunately, when you even look at you could look at metrics in the industry, well, how many calls did you make? How many interviews did you have? How many placements? Not that we're going to do away with metrics per se, but if that's all you're really focused on, how are you building relationships? How are you building the brand of not only your company, which we focus on a lot, but think about the industry. Are you hurting and harming the industry and in turn making clients and candidates not want to work with you, which is the last thing you would want to do. So I would say, again, the experience. And then going back to another point, talent and technology. They're two of the hottest things every company needs, right? Every single company we're servicing, they either operate on, need, use in some way technology. Everyone always says, if I just had more salespeople, if I just had more this,
right.
if I just had more of that, everyone needs talent. So who wouldn't want to be in one of the best industries where we can make the greatest impact for more companies? It's really incredible. But we need to build that brand and really strengthen our reputation to get there.
Agreed. More recruiters need to have more empathy and care more about the people that they're servicing, as opposed to looking at them as transactions. Yeah. And I think that's where the difference comes, where you have these great recruiters that have great reputations and incredible networks because of how they do the business. Right. And, we all know clients and candidates, they work with recruiters because of the recruiter. The recruiter just happens to work at a company. But if that recruiter leaves, rest assured, they're going to try and follow that recruiter because of the experience. I mean, we're all that way in any industry. Whenever we have a sales transaction, a lot of times we buy because we like the person we're buying from. We trust that person. And there's got to be more of that across the board, because I agree with you. There's still enough people in our industry that are doing it, what I say, the wrong way, that tarnish it. And, you give someone a good experience and they recognize that it can be a very fulfilling time or very fulfilling relationship to have with a recruiter. And that's just what we have to keep promoting and permeating through the industry.
I agree.
You're right on that. It's a 9 to 5 job. We can't use it as a 9 to 5. I mean, we have to work in the evenings and stuff like that. I was at Panera Bread with 3 people last night. And I'm going to start today. I mean, I'm giving them a hug and a picture. That's about what staffing is about, doing it when they have time.
Yeah, totally.
To tune in and learn from you. I'm telling you, Richard, just that the passion you put into the way you treat people and, how you put yourself out there and you're doing it, you're really proud of it. Like, take pride in the work you're doing. And if more people did that in the way that they're interacting and truly cared, it really would go a long way. And again, if we think about not just the staffing company, but the MSPs, the VMS, the entire recruitment ecosystem of how we interact with our clients and how we interact with our candidates, if we could come together more, and again, think about how could we better service the different experience around how we're interacting with our teams and the others, it could definitely help their reputation. But I'd really love to see us be a destination industry for sure.
So true. So how do we do this, Leslie? Tell us, how do we transform every recruiter into love and life?
I follow you. Take whatever bottle that you have and share it around. It's training, onboarding. It starts from the top down, though. It goes back to the DEI conversation.
Totally.
It goes back to measuring metrics and growth and goals. It all starts at the top, and then how you filter that out throughout your company and manage it is so critical. And unfortunately, training often gets cut. Other things happen that really can make a big difference. Onboarding, things of that nature. So anyway, we could go on and on for hours. Hey, are we going to go live at Staffing World? I think maybe too.
Absolutely. We're hoping to go live several times with little spots here and there. So
pool too. We might do a little pool action with the live stream.
Oh my gosh, this has been great having you on.
It has. Hey, Les, I got to ask you one more question before we wrap things up. Your vision moving forward in the future. I know you're everywhere. If you could tell anybody out there, what are some of the visions that you have for everybody?
Yeah, I mean, I think the big piece of it is right now, at least to me, is the coming together of everyone. So I just mentioned kind of the recruitment ecosystem, and we have clients who want to work more closely with the VMS, with the MSP, with all of these different groups, and they're having a hard time figuring out how to build that ecosystem. That is so important, I think, to us for the future, is how can the entire recruitment ecosystem come together, whether it be the providers or talent or the technology people. It's critical. And then we need to get in front of technology. We, as an industry, could be a little bit better on the early adoption of technology to support our candidates, our companies, and our clients. Could really make a huge difference. So I see nothing but opportunity as it relates to technology.
Outstanding.
That's amazing. Hey, Johnny, any famous final thoughts, buddy?
Final thoughts. If you're in the industry, especially if I've got, especially if you're a female in the industry and you're not following Leslie, please follow her. She is such a promoter and can do so much good for our industry as a whole, and particularly with the growth that we need in DE&I. Leslie, you're on LinkedIn. You've got the Edge Marketing Podcast. So anywhere else that people can find you?
If you're at Staffing World next week, I'll see you in Denver for sure.
Excellent. I also love the fact that you said, all this, we say it starts from the top down. You hit a nerve with me where you said it starts in the home, because I think, it's all about building culture, and culture starts under the roof with the family. And what are you teaching your kids that they will then go out into the world and want to grow? So I like that you brought that to light, because I think that's very important.
Thank you. We'll be talking about that in the male allyship panel at Staffing World for sure. It's something I talk about all the time. It starts at home, co-CEOs and the family. You saw my husband just walk in a minute ago too, probably. But yeah,
we're live. You never know what's going to happen. Right?
I know. Equality in the home. It's so important. You're right.
That's
And
awesome.
to grow and see that. It's the only way we can fast track the generations of change.
Agreed.
Well,
Yeah.
Leslie, I just want to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much. Can't wait to meet you finally in person next week.
know.
I'm going to sum it up like this. All she pretty much said was thrive to be your best. If you do that, the rest is history. We're all family here, right? We are, man.
I love it. Thank you. Thank
Excellent.
you so much again for hosting the show and having me as a guest. It's a real honor. Thank you.
Sounds good.
We'll see you
Hey,
next
everybody,
week.
All right. Sounds
thank you
good.
so much. We'll see you at Staffing World next week. Get ready for it.
Can't wait.
See you later.
All right.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye.